my name is Azulén and I'm going to talk about the novel written by Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451, and the short story written by Stephen Crane, The Open Boat. I'm going to give a plot of both stories and describe also some of the characters and to give the theme of both stories. Set in the 24th century, Fahrenheit tells the story of the protagonist Montag, who burns books which are entirely prohibited. One day, while returning home from work, Montag meets Clarice, his neighbors, in which questions cause him to reflect critically on the purpose of his work and realize that he is unhappy and no longer loves his wife, Mildred. Next day, Montag returns to the firehouse. There, the mechanical hound starts acting aggressively towards him. During the following weeks, Montag meets Clarice every day, and they discuss the moral and spiritual emptiness of their society. One day, Clarice is suddenly gone. Montag now begins to ask his colleagues about historical origin of book burning. During the next book burning, in an old woman's house, he secretly takes a book. The old woman set fire to herself and to her books. At home, while Mildred is watching television, she is casually mentioned that Clarice was run over by a car. And the next day, Montag feels sick and stays home from work. Shortly afterward, Captain Beatty arrives at his house and explains to him how firemen became book burners. According to him, books were censored in order to avoid offending any particular group in society. In the end, the majority of people preferred happiness to critical awareness, and books were entirely banned. When he leaves the house, Montag confesses his doubts to Mildred and brings out several books he hid in the house. He begins to read to her, but Mildred simply cannot understand. Montag therefore visits Faber, who explains him that books offer a rich texture of life and freedom to act on one's ideas. He gives Montag a pair of earphone transmitters so that they can stay in permanent radio contact. Montag then returns to the firehouse. The alarm bell rings, and he finds that Mildred denounced him and the firemen are going to his house. After Montag uses the frame mover to burn the hiding books, he accidentally loses the transmitters that Faber gave him. When Beatty threatens to trace the owner, Montag kills him with the flamethrower. While Montag is running for his life, he hears that the war is declared. Finally, he reaches Faber's apartment, who tells him to flee towards the open country where teachers and writers are living as tramps. Montag, at the end, makes a final dash for the river. When he leaves the house, Montag confesses his doubts to Mildred and brings out several books he hid in the house. He begins to read to her, but Mildred simply cannot understand. Montag therefore visits Faber, who explains him that books offer a rich texture of life and freedom to act on one's ideas. He gives Montag a pair of earphone transmitters so that they can stay in permanent radio contact. Montag then returns to the firehouse. The alarm bell rings, and he finds that Mildred denounced him and the firemen are going to his house. After Montag uses the frame mover to burn the hiding books, he accidentally loses the transmitters that Faber gave him. When Beatty threatens to trace the owner, Montag kills him with the flamethrower. When Montag is running for his life, he hears that the war is declared. Finally, he reaches Faber's apartment, who tells him to flee towards the open country where teachers and writers are living as tramps. Montag, at the end, makes a final dash for the river. After this, Montag meets a group of social outcasts who keep books alive by memorizing them word for word. The book ends with the destruction of the cities by an atomic bomb, and Montag and his friends will remain living books. Some characters are Guy Montag, who is the protagonist of the story. He is a fireman who makes his living by burning books and the house where they are kept. The story of the novel, Montag seems to be unhappy with his work as a fireman, and while the novel progresses, Montag becomes increasingly discontent as he realizes he has been living an empty and fulfilling life. Mildred is another character. He is Montag's wife, and he is unhappy, and he's immersed herself in a technological gadget of the age, such as a television. She's destroyed when the city is destroyed by the atomic bomb. Clarice is a Montag neighbor, and she is interested in part of the world Montag doesn't understand, and Montag admires Clarice for her curiosity and awareness of the world. She is also the first to encourage Montag on the path of to the self-awareness. Captain Beatty is like Montag's big brother. He's the fireman chief, and when Montag killed him, he realized that the fire chief wanted to die, demonstrating an extreme dissatisfaction with his life. There are some secondary characters like the Professor Famber, who is a retired English teacher, Ganger, who is an intellectual and former author and is also a leader of the group House, and Mechanical Home is a dangerous robotic creature used to track suspects, and the old woman is one of the victims of the fireman's fury. A theme here is the knowledge versus ignorance. Montag's fever and Beatty's struggle revolves around the tensions between knowledge and ignorance. The fireman's duty is to destroy knowledge and promote ignorance in order to equalize the population or promote sameness. His resultant search for knowledge destroyed the unquestioning ignorance he used to share with nearly everyone else, and he battles the basic belief of his society. It's a short story based on Stephen Crane's real-life experience when he was sunk in the high seas of the coast of Florida. He begins with 4 men, a cook, a correspondent, an oiler, and a captain, who are in a lifeboat in stormy seas. They are off the coast of Florida just after the ship has sunk. Soon they spot the light of the lighthouse somewhere in the distance, so they know they are near land. Although they can eventually see the shore, the waves are so big that it is too dangerous to try to take the boat into land. People on the shore see the lifeboat and try to signal to the men to come in, but the sea is just too rough. The 4 men in the boat hope that the people on land will send a bigger boat out to rescue them, but that does not happen. Instead, the men are forced to take the boat further out of the sea, where the waves are not quite as big and dangerous. They spend 2 nights in the lifeboat and take turns rowing and then resting. They are not sure if they will survive, and they have exchanged addresses in case of any of them should die. One morning after the second night, the men are weak and no fishing boat has come to rescue them. The captain decides that they must try to take the lifeboat close to shore as possible and they be ready to swim when the surf inevitably turns the boat over and throws the men into the cold sea. As they get closer to land, the waves get bigger and bigger. Just as they expect, the big wave comes and all the men are thrown into the sea. The lifeboat turns over and the 4 men must swim into shore. At the end, strangely, the cook, the captain and the correspondent reached the shore safely and they were helped out of the water. And they discover that the oiler, the strongest man and the best swimmer, has drowned after being smashed in the surf by a huge wave. There are no central character in the story and all the men on the boat are spoken about more or less equally. We have the correspondent, the oiler, the captain and the cook. The correspondent, he also may not be Stephen Crane himself due to the fact that the story is based on something that actually happened to Crane when he was a war correspondent. The other 3 guys are there in the boat dealing with their situation the best they can and the correspondent is ready deep inside his own head. The oiler is the only character whose name is mentioned in the story. It's Bailey. And with one big difference is that he is the guy who dies. And he keeps to himself and works hard while rowing boat, diligently keeping the men safe from the waves. The captain is a strong guy and he quickly moors while continuing to direct his crew. After all, these guys are still his church and he is the captain of his lifeboat. He's doing the best to remain helpful to the crew on the boat, even if sometimes he forgets to bathe the water, and the captain needs to remind him. He's the only guy in the boat wearing a life preserver, but he's not exactly in the best shape. So the theme of this story is determination. The story presents determination as one of the defining characteristics setting humanity apart from nature, represented here by the chaos of the waves and the menacing idleness of the shark. Maybe this goes without saying, but the 4 men in the boat worked really hard just to try to survive.